Hello everyone, bonjour tout le monde. Welcome to EFA156 on this Tuesday, August 25th. Homeschooling. I'm going to get into homeschooling here, but I'm also going to get into what the hell are we heading into as it pertains to homeschooling. So let's jump right into this, right? Socially inept. There is a part of homeschooling that sometimes develops socially inept children, right? And that there's tons of studies out there, and you go and research and start Googling. There's some very good results of homeschooling done properly, and there's bad results of homeschooling done not so good, right? And just like your teaching is, etc. And we have a system out there, a teaching system that delivers in modules and delivers in programs and structures that were designed through research and etc. and knowledge of our school system, right? And that system has a system in place to keep the fragmented mind of our children intact so they can learn all day, right? So that system is an important system. And there are those out there, which I'm going to get into, that are able to do that from a home-based type homeschooling. And there's going to be a big percentage of them that will not be able to do so. And when I look at my lifestyle, and I've talked about this before, about like longevity, what I know today through research, like most medical conditions that people suffer from in their 50s, 60s, and 70s and so on, built from when they're 20s, 30s, and 40 through the immersion of foods into their bodies, right? Consumption of immersing themselves into an unhealthy lifestyle that built into their illness rendered body in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. The same thing is going to apply here when you look at homeschooling. What's going to be the ripple effect? What are our children going to be like when in their 20s and 30s as adults, right? By the uncertainties of our system right now, that homeschooling world that we're pushing them into, right? Being herded into. So let's get on to this. Socially inept, defined as lacking widely accepted social skills. And I've used this analogy before. I used to see that with inmates. And when you're a product of your upbringing, surrounding, and foundation, I could tell inmates that were raised in a less fortunate household, we're going to call it. And they became product of their upbringing, surrounding, and foundation. And a lot of them would lack socially accepted skills, and therefore they find themselves in situations and they're constantly in trouble with the law and with the systems and so forth, right? In relationships, the whole 9 yards. That socially inept problem also affects a lot of children that are not properly homeschooled, and they're not integrated into society and interact and a whole bunch of stuff, right? And that's why you see sometimes people that were homeschooled, they stand out like a sore thumb, right? But look at their upbringing, surrounding, and foundation and how it was done. And that's why the socially ineptness comes from, right? They're products of. So, and I'm not trying to be critical here, but there's people out there that should not teach. Right, and students will tell you that that there's people out there that do not know how to teach and they should not teach, and that includes parents, right? And we're going to get into this more into detail here, because let's get into the details. The parents being inept to teach, right? When I say this, and I'm talking from knowledge, training, and experience. Teachers, substitute teachers, they go in with even the brand new fresh teacher go into a program with curriculums and with lesson plans and with modules and everything for them to teach, right? Because they were taught how to teach and etc. And then they go in with the structure to teach, right? Because of the structure in place. So we're going to have parents out there teaching, but parents that are inept because they do not have the knowledge, training, and experience. Also, because they're not immersed in it. And a lot of parents out there, and like, I'll be one of them. Like, my daughters would open up some things and would ask you questions sometimes. I'm going like, I wasn't immersed in that class. I wasn't involved with the teacher and into the teachings of the subject. So it was hard for me to answer a lot of these questions when I don't know the basis of it. And then you get your child to explain it, etc. But unless you're immersed in it, it's not that you're inept as a parent. You might have a university degree and that kind of stuff. You're going to find stuff hard because you haven't done it in a long time. Go to your oldest jobs. Go to your first job, second job, third jobs. I run businesses. If I was to go into the administration position of that business, I would have to be taught again, right? I would have to be taught again because I haven't done that position in such a long time. Same thing applies here. This is because you have 5 years of university or 3 years of college or whatever, it doesn't make you a teacher, and it doesn't mean that you're going to know what to do, right? So that's why this online homeschooling has to be really seamless. And I'm talking to all governance and all teachers and all school boards and everything. You have to have a really, really good system. And there's a lot of private instructors out there that have really good systems in place, and they're going to direct a lot of the traffic towards them for private schooling and that, which is unfair given that we're all paying taxes for our children to go to school, but now they're going to be homeschool. And why would people send their kids to private programs and that kind of stuff? Because of the dual income, right? We live in such an expensive society. That's why we have dual incomes, to stay inside of nice neighborhoods and try to be part of nice communities and so on and so forth. And that's why you work a lot and dual jobs and so on and so forth. And to give your children like involved in sporting activities, etc., which costs a lot of money. Right? Everything is tied to money. And I say this all the time, and that's that whole other podcast. But because of the dual income, are we now going to downsize? Our parents are going to start downsizing jobs because there's a big percentage, I'm going to get into that, of parents that do not want to send their children to school, right? And we're talking about that, well, there's 50-50 splits out there, there's 60-40 splits, 70-30 splits of undecisive. In my household, I have 2 daughters, and we empower our daughters to be strong, individual driven women. And what do you want to do, right? And give us your thought process behind it and have the discussions. And one daughter wants to go back to school, and the other daughter does not want to go back to school. She wants to do she really loves the online teaching and that kind of stuff. She does much better, much more focused, etc. And then she found herself doing better that way. The other one is more interactive with the school and classmates and sports and so on and so forth, and wants to go back to school, right? And that's their choice, right? But that's the system we're going into. So in my household, our household, it's a 50-50 split right now, right? So that right there, and my daughters are at that age now, right? My daughters are at that age where they're old enough to be alone, right? But then like all the families, depending on the jurisdiction you're in and what is considered a juvenile child in your household, how many parents are going to need to quit their jobs if they want to homeschool? And the reason why sometimes you have to homeschool is because of the stuff I'm going to talk about, the fragmented system that's out there right now. And there's parents that really don't want to send their kids to school. They don't, beyond the fear of COVID, but it's also for the fragmented information, fragmented system. School buses are not ready. This is not ready. The governments and the unions are fighting and infighting and disharmony, right? So that's why a lot of people are looking at, are we going to downsize? Am I going to keep if my daughter's 3 and my other daughter's 4 and there's no vaccine? And what if there isn't a vaccine for 4, 5, 6 years? What if there is no cure for 10, 20 years? You know what I'm getting at. So that's why people are talking about that dual income and downsizing part of it. Multi-screens, no internet. Now, let's just say that we have a good system in place and the online system is in place and the school system has got it top notch and like bada boom, bada bing, like swing, everything looks good, right? Now the child's on the other side of the screen inside their own classroom, i.e. their home office, their bedroom, their kitchen, their stools or whatever they're gonna create in their household, right? Summertime, go outside and do class, sit, whatever. Sit on a toilet if you want, right? That's the world. But how many other screens are they gonna have? And I said this to my daughters, and they say like, kids have screens in class all the time. They have multiple screens anyways, right? But there's still a teacher on there that's nonstop, constant surveillance, right? Constantly on the children. And at home, are the parents gonna do that? Are parents going to give 8 hours of the day, 6 hours of the day, 4 hours of the day solid for their children, for their homeschooling, to make sure that they follow through with everything daily, basically incrementation of hours every day with their children to make sure everything is met? So now the parent is becoming a teacher and they're going to be working with the teachers teaching. That's what's going to happen here. So parents have to take on that role. right? It's one thing to say, I'm going to do this, but actually doing it are two different things. So when I'm talking about these multi-screens, that's the surveillance that these children are going to need, because they're going to be so submerged in social media and interconnectivity between all the homeschooling and all that fragmented world we live in. What are we going to be facing with our children when they're 20s and 30s if we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 years of this? Think about this for a second here. That's why this system, this online system, this homeschooling system has to be flawless. And let's get into the multi-screen. No internet. One of the things they were surprised is how many people do not have access, children do not have access to internet at home or computers at home or even Wi-Fi, right? They don't have access. It's cost and etc. Cost inhibitive, because we are, North America, Canada, the highest or one of the highest internet costs in the world, or in a developed or democratic society. Think about that, right? And that's Canada. So, and I'm sure a lot of other places in the world are just like that. So those extra $200, $300, $400 a month, depending on what type of utilities you need, etc., the people don't want that, right? But you need it if you want to homeschool and if you want to go to school 2021 going forward, right? So let's finish up here. The disharmony globally between the systems, and this is the whole systems globally. Your unions, your governance, your school buses, everything is still fragmented, and there's such a disharmony, and there's threats of lawsuits and threats of strikes and threats of parents not wanting to go to school because they don't want to push their kids into the devil's den. Like, go into the fire, go, and good luck, right? And I say this sarcastically here, but it's their parents. That's their children. They're sending them into uncertainty. Why would you want to do that? Hence why people are talking about homeschooling. Hence why there's children that don't want to go to school. Hence why people don't even want to send their kids to daycare, right? So that's why there's going to be a lot of downsizing and a lot of dual income thought process changes and so on and so forth, because of this global disharmony between the systems. And I'm talking about all these big funded systems out there. Your disharmony between yourselves, your fragmentation between yourself is causing a lot of this. That's what you're doing. You're stirring that pot right here, right? So that percentage, I've already touched base on this, right? There's a big percentage. What is it going to be? And then out of that percentage, what is the percentage of them not going back? Right? How many of them that are going to go to homeschool, whether it's 70, 30, 60, 40, 50, 50 split, 20% go to homeschool, 30% go to homeschool, that's a drop in your schools, right? And imagine all that free real estate now, space available in those schools sitting empty because people went to homeschool. And then that percentage of homeschool, and there's going to be possibly an increase in that, because they're going to find, actually, it's better staying at home. I don't have to travel to school. I'm saving on vehicles. I'm saving on driving. I'm saving on, like, my children eating junk at school. Now they're going to eat at home. They're going to eat nutrient-dense food. There's a lot of perks to homeschooling, right? There's a lot of perks being readily available right away for all the other after-school programs. Bada boom, bada bing, get changed, get done. Right? There's a lot of perks of homeschooling. And those perks of homeschooling, there's going to be a lot of individuals going to say, I'm not going back to school. And then the sad thing about that, and I talked about this before in the beginning, ineptness, right? There's a percentage of that good benefit to homeschooling that's going to fall under the ineptness of parents teaching and the ineptness of the school, the way they were taught through their upbringing surrounding the foundations, right? And that's the other part that scares me. That actually frightens me as a human being when I look at Canada, when I look at competitiveness in the world, in business and knowledge and training and experience. When I look at that, like, are we going to fall behind? Because there's some other countries that they run their countries a lot different, and a lot different. and what will they be with their children? Will their children be that much more smarter and more advanced than us in 10 years, 20 years from now? Are they going to be the much more productive societies as adults? Because of this, what the hell, global disharmony that we have between our systems. And that's just for homeschooling. That's just for schools. That's just for that whole 9 yards. So in closing here on EFA156, if you take all this, and I'm speaking to the government, so the governance out there of all systems, your unions, your governments, and of all life forms, and globally, because this is affecting everybody globally. And I'm sure you have, and I'm not teaching, and I'm hoping I'm just preaching to the choir here, but that you've looked at the long-term effects of what you're doing right now to our children who will become adults and are supposed to become productive members of society. We have enough society right now that likes to suppress and likes to stay at home and their feet up and everything mystically, magically given to them, right? We have enough of that. We don't need more of that mindset. We need productive, hardworking, driven individuals put out into the workforce, put out into society, put out into any realm, whether it's voluntary, etc., that they have to have the knowledge, training, and experience to go out to that world to be competitive against a population of 7.2 billion other people. Jean-Guy Bourguignon, EFA156.